File item 176, that's AB 1482. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1482 by Assemblymember Gordon and others, enact relating to climate change.
Mr. Gordon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. California has been a leader in taking actions to impact the causes of global climate change. In spite of our efforts, climate change continues to affect our state. It's not enough to try to reverse the course of climate change. We must also become a leader in adapting to climate change. AB 1482 would require the Natural Resources Agency, in coordination with the Strategic Growth Council, to review and coordinate existing grants and programs to achieve the following goals. 1. Establishing policy, guidelines, and guidance to inform planning decisions. 2. Ensuring that state investments consider climate change impacts. And 3. Encouraging regional collaborative planning efforts to adapt to climate change. In addition, this bill would require the Natural Resources Agency and the Strategic Growth Council to identify and coordinate opportunities among its departments in expending state funds to implement these goals. AB 1482 has no registered opposition and enjoys support from environmental groups, the Local Government Commission, and the Little Hoover Commission. They see the need to develop policies to address climate adaptation, and I hope you will too. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 51, noes 11. Measure passes. File item 177, that's AB 1496. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1496 by Assemblymember Thurmond and others, enact relating to greenhouse gases.
Mr. Thurmond, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I rise to present AB 1496. Like the last bill, it ponders a conversation about climate change and the quality of our air. It's a bill about protecting public health and improving air quality and reducing global warming. The bill does three things. It requires the Air Resources Board to monitor and measure high-emission methane hotspots, to analyze the life cycle greenhouse gas emission of natural gas, and to evaluate data and reports of methane as an air pollutant. This will provide us with a deeper understanding of the role of methane as a greenhouse gas and air pollutant, and will help California to better meet its environmental goals and keep our communities healthier and safer. I respectfully request your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Thurmond. Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 45, noes 15. Measure passes. File item 178, pass and retain. Moving to file item 179, that's AB 58. The clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 58 by Assemblymember Rodriguez, enact relating to school safety.
Mr. Rodriguez, you may open.
Mr. Speaker and members, AB 58 would add the following requirements to school safety plans. Include active shooter training to best prepare teachers, students, and staff for such an incident. Requires each superintendent of a school district and county of education to certify each school that has developed and implemented a school safety plan. Extends the requirements to develop school safety plans to charter. AB 58 just adds a few more requirements to better prepare in the event of an active shooter situation. The bill has support on both sides. I ask respectfully for an aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 66, no 0. Measure passes. File item 180, AB 63. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 63 by Assemblymember Bonilla, enact relating to school safety.
Ms. Bonilla.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and colleagues. AB 63 seeks to provide funding for school safety and violence prevention programs through the creation and sale of a specialized license plate. In the past, the state provided direct school funding to implement programs that address these concerns. However, with the enactment of the local control funding formula, these programs were integrated into school districts and the base grants no longer into their district's base grants, and these programs no longer exist. AB 63 would help create and help provide a direct source of funding to reestablish these violence prevention programs. I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Ms. Bonilla. Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote or desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 60, no 0. Measure passes. File item 181, AB 82. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 82 by Assemblymember Christina Garcia and others enacted relating to vehicles.
Ms. Garcia, you may open.
AB 82 would automatically enroll anyone eligible for selective services when they apply for a license, making it easier for them to fulfill their civic duty. AB 82 also allows anyone to opt out within 21 days of filling out the new driver's license application. Failure to enroll with selective services results in the forfeiture of federal education grants, federal job training, and possibly federal jobs. AB 82 will help ensure constituents don't fall through the cracks and help them better fulfill their civic duty. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia. Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 58, noes 2. Measure passes. File items 182 and 183 pass and retain. File item 184, that's AB 171. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 171 by Assemblymember Irwin and others enacted relating to veterans, making appropriation therefore, declaring the urgency thereof to take effect immediately.
Ms. Irwin, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. AB 171 appropriates $5.6 million to counties through a performance-based formula to fund county veteran service officers who help connect California's veterans with the federal benefits they have earned. There is no opposition. This bill has had unanimous and bipartisan support, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Ms. Irwin. Mr. Mathis.
Members, I too rise in support. Our county veteran service offices are the very first spot our veterans go to in the long road to get through the VA process. They need as much support as they can get. This measure will allow them to staff and help our veterans out even more. And again, let's help our veterans. Let's get more people there to help them, and let's pass this. Thank you.
With that, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 64, noes 1 on the urgency. Ayes 64, noes 1 on the bill. Measure passes. File item 185, that's AB 172. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 172 by Assemblymember Rodriguez enacted relating to hospital emergency departments.
Mr. Rodriguez, you may open.
Mr. Speaker and members, AB 172 would increase the penalties for violence committed against all healthcare workers engaged in providing services inside the emergency department. The bill has support on both sides. I ask respectfully, request an aye vote.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. With that, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 64, noes 1. Measure passes. File item 186, AB 176. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 176 by Assemblymember Bonta and others enacted relating to data collection.
Mr. Bonta.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, AB 176 will address the health and education disparities of ethnic subgroups within the API community. California is home to the nation's largest Asian American and second largest Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander populations. The API community is not homogeneous. Each of our diverse API communities has different social, economic, and educational experiences and outcomes that need to be addressed differently. AB 176 will require the Department of Health Care Services, the Department of Managed Care, and our public higher education institutions to use disaggregated categories for each major Asian and Pacific Islander subgroup and make the data publicly available on their websites. In many cases, this data is already being collected. As a result, this bill has only minor and absorbable costs to report the data. The data unveiled by AB 176 will give policymakers, government agencies, and the community critical information to better and more effectively serve our API community. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Jones-Sawyer, you are recognized.
Mr. Speaker, as chair of the California Legislative Black Caucus, I stand in strong support of AB 176. This measure is needed in order to improve service delivery within the API community. My home city of Los Angeles is home to the largest API population in the United States. Current data shows that this group, on average, far surpasses the rest of the state on the important life indicators such as income and education. However, those who take a deeper look within this community often see a tale of two cities, particularly within the Southeast Asian and Pacific Islander populations. These groups have very similar outcomes in higher education as African Americans, which, as many of you know, have the lowest college graduation rate within our public university system. By disaggregating the data, we can better examine the true status of all groups within the API community and provide the services needed to best support these groups. Thank you, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Ms. Kim, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I rise today in support of AB 176. The Asian American community is the largest, fastest growing demographic in California, but it is also incredibly diverse. The background and the needs of an individual from one country of origin may have little in common with those of an individual from another country. Among Asian Americans, we have a wide range of language skills, poverty rates, and degrees of assimilation across the various communities. If you look at the bill analysis, I would like to read from the analysis. Different Asian and Pacific Islander communities have different educational and other outcomes, and some may argue that the distinctions are valuable for research and public policy and that the state and the general public have an interest in knowing those differences. AB 176 will allow us to recognize how those differences will affect our opportunities later in life. So with that, I would like to thank the author for bringing this bill forward, and I ask for your aye vote on AB 176.
With that, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 65, noes 1. Measure passes. File item 187, AB 187. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 187 by Assemblymember Bonta, an act relating to children's services.
Mr. Bonta, you may again open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. AB 187 continues the current administration of the California Children's Services Program until January 1, 2017. CCS is a vital program that serves our most medically vulnerable children. These children require specialty care through specialty networks and therefore exist in a carve-out from Medi-Cal. The most recent CCS carve-out expires January 1, 2016. This bill extends it another year. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
See no discussion or debate on this item. Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 67, no 0. Measure passes. File item 188, AB 192. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 192 by Assemblymember Travis Allen, an act relating to license plates.
Mr. Allen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to present AB 192. This bill creates a specialty license plate to benefit all Californians through the Coastal Conservancy. On a personal note, my mother was previously the chair of the California Coastal Conservancy for 12 years. And given my family's history of protecting the environment and our world-renowned beaches, as well as my proven track record of keeping our beaches open to anyone who wants to enjoy them, I crafted AB 192 to further these efforts. A similar license plate is actually in place in Florida, and it was implemented in 2014. Since then, over 20,000 license plates have been sold in Florida, and currently the state is on pace to sell about 1,000 new plates each month. So based on the success of the license plates in Florida, California should have equal, if not greater, demand for this license plate, especially since we have nearly double the population of Florida and a much better coastline. So not only will this bill help our world-renowned coasts, but the funds will go to help the California Coastal Conservancy, and we'll specifically look at protecting our California sea lions who are showing up on our beaches in record numbers due to poor health. With that, I respectfully ask your aye vote on AB 192.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. See no discussion or debate on this item. Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 62, noes 5. Measure passes. File item 189, AB 193. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 193 by Assemblymember Mainshine and others, an act relating to conservatorships.
Mr. Mainshine.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Today I rise to present AB 193, which would serve to get individuals with severe mental illness that are overlooked by current law the help and treatment they truly need through an LPS conservatorship. AB 193 would allow a judge presiding over a probate conservatorship to recommend to the county investigating officer the establishment of an LPS conservatorship when there is evidence of grave disability as a result of a mental disorder and make associated procedural changes necessary to carry out this authority. Thank you for your time, and I respectfully request your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mainshine. Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 68, no 0. Measure passes. File item 190, that's AB 200. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 200 by Assemblymember Alejo and others, enacting to student financial aid.
Mr. Alejo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Today I'm proud to present AB 200, which will increase the number of competitive Cal Grants issued each year from 22,500 to up to 60,000. This is the first increase in about 15 years. AB 200 will work to better serve low-income students throughout the state by helping them not only get to college, but more importantly, get through college to receive their degree in a timely manner. Cal Grants provide more than $1.8 billion in need-based aid to California students. However, students who do not apply for a Cal Grant within a year of graduating from high school or miss the deadline for the entitlement program must compete for a limited number of competitive Cal Grants. Only 23% of the state's lowest income students who apply for aid receive a Cal Grant, denying hundreds of thousands of deserving students a fighting chance. The high number of students who apply but don't receive a competitive Cal Grant is unacceptable. The state's workforce needs 2.3 million more college-educated individuals by 2025 for California to remain competitive. This is only possible if college is made affordable to all, and doing so requires an increase in the number of competitive Cal Grants that are awarded each year. This bill is co-authored by the chairs of the API, Black, and Latino caucuses and has received unanimous support in the Higher Ed and the Appropriations Committee. I respectfully ask for your aye vote on this very important bill for our young people.
Mr. Jones Sawyer.
Mr. Speaker, as a joint author of AB 200, I rise in strong support of this important piece of legislation. For thousands of low-income students, Cal Grants provide a vehicle for a higher education and, therefore, access to the middle class. However, far too many students who do not take the traditional route to college are denied this funding opportunity, leaving them to finance their education primarily through student loans. AB 200 will increase the number of competitive Cal Grants to qualified students. I repeat, qualified students. Thank you, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Williams.
Colleagues, I just want to rise in support of this. As chair of the API caucus, this is a tri-caucus effort. That's why you see the three heads of the ethnic caucuses as authors and co-authors. This is something that will help all students of California, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
With that, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 69, no 0. Measure passes. File items 191 and 192 are passed and retained. Moving to file item 193. That's AB 287. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 287 by Assemblymember Gordon and others, enacting to vehicle safety.
Mr. Gordon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In 2014, there were nearly 64 million automobile recall notices issued in the United States. While that number is shocking, early indications, including the expanded Takata airbag recall just days ago, are that the number of recalls in 2015 may be even greater. Unfortunately, in many instances, getting the recall service completed is not as simple as calling a franchise dealer and making an appointment. Notification of vehicle owners is a challenge. And even when notice is received and the owner seeks a repair, the requisite parts may not be available. In some instances, the wait for parts may be several months, or in the Takata airbag instance, it may be years. AB 287 attempts to address recalls and used cars, whether they are sold by a new car dealer, a used car dealer, a private party, or are rented by a rental car agency. The basic concept behind this legislation is that we need to, 1, provide consumers with information so that they can make an informed choice when purchasing a vehicle. 2, incentivize the repair of vehicles subject to recall. And 3, when necessary, prohibit the sale of some vehicles until the repair is completed. This bill also expressly preserves consumer legal rights, claims, or remedies otherwise available under law. There are a number of consumer organizations opposing this bill. They take the position that all cars need to have recalls repaired now. The Sacramento Bee issued an editorial yesterday suggesting that the bill does not go far enough. And you know what? They're right. I agree with both of them. We do need all vehicles subject to recall repaired as soon as possible. And if you have some pause about what we should do about recalls, rest assured that I do too. This bill and this issue is one of the most complex matters that I've worked on in my time in Sacramento. And I'm still trying to work through what we can do to resolve this issue in a manner that is best for all Californians. I believe that the approach taken in AB 287 represents what is practical and possible in the current recall environment. Currently, existing law imposes no restrictions on the sale of used cars with an open recall. There is no requirement of notice to the consumer of an unrepaired recall. Required parts to repair a vehicle may not be available for months, and consumers may not be aware of the recall status of vehicles. The approach in AB 287 ensures that manufacturers and dealers both have skin in the game and that consumers are better informed. Colleagues, the bottom line is that it appears that we've entered a new era of increasing automobile recalls, and we need to do something to protect Californians. I would respectfully request an aye vote on AB 287.
Thank you, Ms. Gordon. Mr. Lackey, you are recognized.
Yes, Chair and colleagues. You know, one of the greatest lessons I learned throughout my law enforcement experience was if something is predictable, it's preventable. And one of the reasons for recalls is to show us the vulnerabilities of some of these automobiles. And I can tell you from experience that unfortunately it's through mechanical failure that I've seen a number of tragedies and even death. So let's do what we can to take on our responsibility to act in the interest of public safety and support this good bill from my colleague, Menlo Park.
With that, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 62, no 0. Measure passes. File item 194. That's AB 300. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 300 by Assemblymember Alejo and others, enacting into coastal wildlife protection.
Mr. Alejo, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I'm pleased to present AB 300. This bill came about due to water quality issues that were seen at Pinto Lake, a small lake in my hometown of Watsonville, but nonetheless a serious enough problem that it caught or received coverage from National Geographic magazine and was also connected to the deaths of several sea otters in the beautiful Monterey Bay. We began talking about the problems at Pinto Lake. We learned that toxic algae blooms are increasingly causing toxic and poisonous events in coastal lake, estuaries, and rivers all across California. The toxic algae threatens water supplies, wildlife, and human health, and is especially a problem for people fishing in these lakes and taking fish home for their families to eat. The California drought is increasing the problem of algae, this algae toxic bloom throughout the California, from the Klamath River to Clear Lake on the north coast to Southern California, including the algae blooms found in Lake Elsinore and the Salton Sea. This bill calls for developing a statewide strategy for reducing algae, toxic algae, and then ties the strategy to funding sources that the various agencies like Fish and Wildlife, the Coastal Conservancy, and the State Water Board have. I respectfully ask for an aye vote on this important bill.
Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 62, no 0. Measure passes. File item 195. That's AB 325. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 325 by Assemblymember Wood, enacting into economic development.
Mr. Wood, you may open.
Speaker and members, the Community Development Block Grant Program, or CDBG, is a federally funded program designed to expand economic opportunities for people of low and moderate income. These funds can be used for a variety of essential local projects, from affordable housing to supporting small businesses. Unfortunately, the Department of Housing and Community Development is making this resource challenging to access. AB 325 creates a timeline for the program that the department must follow. The timeline will ensure access to these federal dollars for our local communities, especially in my rural district. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Woods. Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote or desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote or desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 63, no 0. Measure passes. File item 196, pass and retain. File item 197, that's AB 361. The clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 361 by Assemblymember Shajian and others, enact relating to emergency services.
Mr. Shajian, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to present Assembly Bill 361, which will extend the sunset date of the Nuclear Planning Assessment Special Account from July 1, 2019 to August 26, 2025. This account will be funded by 3 1/1000ths of a cent per kilowatt to continue to fund emergency planning programs for the Diablo Canyon Power Plant. Currently, the Office of Emergency Services is required to coordinate the activities of all state agencies relating to preparation and implementation of the State Nuclear Power Plant Emergency Response Plan. Existing law requires utilities to pay for anticipated state and local agency costs to the state controller, who then places it into the special account to fund local emergency planning programs. However, this requirement sunset more than 5 years prior to Diablo Canyon's current license expiration. If the plant were to continue in operation without funding, emergency preparedness and response for the surrounding areas in the state will be jeopardized. AB 361 will ensure that these critical programs are funded to match the duration of the nuclear power plant license. Respectfully ask for your aye vote.
See no discussion or debate on this item. Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 66, no 0. Measure passes. File item 198, AB 366. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 366 by Assemblymember Bonta and others, enact relating to Medi-Cal.
Mr. Bonta.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, AB 366 would ensure that the Department of Healthcare Services is adequately monitoring access and quality of care in the Medi-Cal program. In addition, AB 366 requires DHCS to report annually on access in the Medi-Cal program. California's Medi-Cal program has grown to serve over 12 million people, nearly one-third of all Californians. Patients throughout the state are experiencing significant hurdles receiving care due to California's low reimbursement rates paid to Medi-Cal providers, which is one of the lowest reimbursement rates in the country. As a result of the low rates, patients on Medi-Cal frequently express frustration about limited provider availability and delays in accessing care. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Bonta. Seeing no debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 66, no 0. Measure passes. File item 199, that's AB 379. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 379 by Assemblymember Gordon, enact relating to foster youth.
Mr. Gordon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. AB 379 would provide homeless and foster youth a mechanism to enforce their educational rights through the existing uniform complaint procedure. Of all of our young people, California's foster youth have amongst the worst educational outcomes. They have the lowest scores in English and math, and they have the lowest high school graduation rate of any subgroup. Additionally, foster youth are more likely to change schools during the school year. Currently, the uniform complaint procedure is used for school-based complaints such as unlawful pupil fees, bullying, and discrimination. The complaints can be filed by an individual, public agency, or organization. AB 379 would allow school-aged foster youth and homeless youth to use this procedure as a way to file complaints to a school district about not attaining their deserved educational rights. Applying the uniform complaint procedure to these protected rights will bring accountability and provide a way to enforce these important educational rights for this vulnerable population. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Thank you, Ms. Gordon. Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote or desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 64, no 0. Measure passes.